What's going on, guys? aarava here, and welcome back to another video on Need for Speed 2015. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new around here to see a whole host of new Need for Speed content over the coming days. And now today, specifically in today's video, we're going to be talking about the performance of your car, trying to get the best out of it by tuning the handling, tuning how the car is actually set up, and also upgrading it. Now, I got plenty of hands-on with this game, and I was able to kind of fiddle around with all the settings and try and suss out what really made the car go faster. And when I mean faster, I mean in a sense of actual racing faster, trying to get lap time out of time trial, trying to beat the AI in the hardest races possible, and trying to just find that really good sweet spot of just going absolutely as fast as you can. Now, in terms of drifting, obviously, if you want to try and get style points and whatnot, this may not be the exact video for you. I might do another video on that, so if you want me to do that, let me know in the comments below. But today, we're going to be specifically talking about how to make your car go faster, not just in a straight line, but also just generally over a lap or whatnot of your race or your time trial. So the first thing I recommend you guys to do is as soon as you can, as soon as your garage is unlocked to you, you go straight to the tuning menu. Obviously, you pick one of the 3 starting cars. So whatever you do, before you even go out and race, I recommend you go to the tuning menu and fiddle around with those, because you'll find that the bog standard default settings for any car pretty much, it always makes the car feel very, very stiff, I found, which, is not too bad. You could still drive it quite fast, but I felt to get really, really maximum performance out of the car, you have to go into the tuning menu, into the handling menu, and actually fiddle around with it. Now, in terms of tire pressures, obviously for pure racing, you want less tire pressure for more grip, because there's more surface area of the tire on the actual road itself. Obviously, if you're chasing style, make the rear looser so that you can kick out the tail a lot easier, but that kind of depends, as I said, on if you actually want to go for that. Today, we're all talking about performance of the actual car in terms of, racing and doing a time trial lap in a race. In terms of steering response, to be honest, I actually found that going to the max faster steering response for drifting and racing is the best possible way. I found that despite the game telling you that the fast steering response is to really just aid your drifting, I found that even if you put it to the max fast steering response, it even helps your racing out, because especially on the higher end cars, the steering, because of the amount of power you have, the steering is very stiff, so you want a really fast responsive steering to make those quick darting moves. When you're in a slipstream of the car, you can dart out onto a bridge. If you're trying to make a tight corner, you can really go around it with quite rapid pace, and also, dodge past traffic in a really fast motion. Now, obviously, if you're not as confident with the faster steering, because it is a bit more wayward, you do have to be a lot more precise. So if you're not as comfortable with that sort of thing, you may want to lower it down, or if you have something like scuff controllers or whatnot, or control freaks on your controllers for the analog sticks, you may want to lower it down. But generally, if you're using a bog standard PS4 or Xbox One controller, I felt that if you put it on the max fast steer response, that not only helps your drifting, but also phenomenally helps your racing craft in terms of the way you can move the car around really quickly. And so once you're done with the tuning, I recommend you just go out there in Ventura Bay and just try it out. Just try your car out and get used to it. See what works. If you need to fiddle around with it, then fiddle around with it a bit more. Obviously, we all have our certain different styles of driving, so this may not suit your exact style. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I got from playing this game. Like, straight away in the first hour or so, I wasn't as near enough as fast as I was in the last few hours of recording this game, because I got so used to it and so into how you really finely tune your drift into a corner, or really, kind of carry a speed through a corner and whatnot, and just generally go faster in races and time trials and whatnot. So once you're comfortable with your tuning and whatnot, and you're happy with how the car drives at that point, then you want to move on to suspension tuning. Now, you get to that by going to the vehicle customization visual menu, so where you actually put on body parts, and then you want to go to the front of the car and go a little bit lower underneath the actual hood, and there'll be 2 options. There'll be the splitter, and then the stance option is the one you want to click. That's above the splitter option. Once you click that, you go into this menu for suspension tuning, and you can change things like ride height, rake, and cambers and whatnot. So in terms of ride heights, you want to lower the car. It gives it a lower sense of gravity and keeps it a lot more stable as well, I felt. And for the rake, you want it generally, for racing at least, you want it towards the front. I guess if you're drifting, you maybe want to keep it quite neutral or towards the rear. But in terms of racing terms, a front rake is always really a lot better, because what you're doing is essentially you're making the entire chassis tilt towards the front end. So that gives you a lot more grip at the front end to actually turn in, make the corners really nicely and carry a lot of speed. Moving on down to track width now, this is basically how much your tires are protruding from the car. The game starts you off with all the way to the right, to the narrow on the front and the rear. Now I felt just also in terms of looks, it looks a lot nicer, but also in terms of feel as well. I felt maybe a midway point between narrow and wide was a good thing. The cars do look a lot nicer as well, I feel, with wider track width in terms of how far the tires are protruding, but also the feel of the car, because the tires are so much wider, you can induce a drift a little bit more easier. Now, even though I'm talking all about race performance, you do want a little bit of an ability to drift, because if your car is so stiff that it can't pull off a good drift, you are going to lose some time, because it is like old NFS games, you know, Need for Speed Most Wanted and Carbon, where certain drifts in certain corners like hairpins or maybe quite a mid-range kind of, you know, there's a bit of a turn, you can't carry full speed into the corner, a drift will actually sometimes pull off a lot faster of a lap time for you, because you're carrying a lot more momentum, and that's just how Need for Speed works. You know, if you're thinking something else, then you're in the wrong place, because that's how Need for Speed works. You know, drifting is a big aspect of the actual driving itself, and you want to be able to induce a drift when you actually need to in a hairpin kind of situation or whatnot for a time trial, or even indeed a race if you want to try and avoid some traffic or whatnot, or if you want to even just drift past an AI car and try and take the lead of the race, you want to be able to induce that drift. Now, we've done so much to make the car grip that I feel the track width now, making it a lot more wider, is just kind of going to be that compromise that you want. So finally, moving on to the camber, I felt you wanted to move it all the way to the left. The max camber, negative camber you can get on the front and the rear. That turns the wheels inwards, gives you a lot better grip, a lot more turn-in response as well. You may actually lose a bit more grip on the rear end if you put in the camber all the way to the left, but that's sort of a good thing. As I said, it's all about compromise. We've done so much so far to make the car grip up that you want that kind of compromise of being able to drift in, but definitely in the fronts, the front camber really does help the turn-in. And then after all this, then I recommend you move on to the performance upgrades. I really highly recommend you go to tuning and suspension tuning and just the general handling tuning first before you touch anything else of your car in terms of the performance. Once you've done all that and you feel comfortable with your car, then go on to performance and start to obviously choose your upgrades wisely. Now, at the beginning of the game, I felt, you know, you don't have a huge amount of cash, so you need to pick wisely. Things like the engine block performance, which is quite a hefty upgrade. I think it was around $1,500 for the first engine block upgrade. Those are quite chunky upgrades, but they do give you so much performance. So I recommend actually saving up a little bit more to go for those higher end kind of performance upgrades, because otherwise I feel like you're just burning your money on smaller things like air intakes and whatnot, whereas you can kind of get the engine block upgrade and really take your car to the next level in terms of the top speed, because you'll find very quickly that you hit the limiter quite fast. At least in the Subaru, I did quite fast in the races when I was trying to do you know, racing or time trial laps, that I wanted that little bit more kind of further on from the rev limiter, so I needed to upgrade the horsepower to get some more beef out that engine. And then from there on, it's really just, you know, very simple. You just keep on putting the best parts on your car when you unlock them through your rep and you can afford them, and obviously your car will get better. That's kind of, you know, very obvious, but the biggest thing to me was the actual tuning of the car that really made the difference between how you could chuck around the car and really find the speed that you want from your car. And finally, I would say, guys, really just take this with a bit of pinch of salt. It's not going to work on every single car. I did find out that these tuning setups aren't exactly the same for every single car. You know, later on in the game, I upgraded my Subaru, I sold that off, and I got a Porsche, and the Porsche had a lot more power to it, and it had a lot more of a stiffer steering to it than the Subaru, so it was a lot less loose. So it felt like I actually had to put a lot more drifting, leaning towards drift tuning in the Porsche to actually just make it turn the same as the Subaru, in terms of if I could pull off a drift in the Subaru in one corner, I had to make the tuning for the Porsche a little bit more towards drift to pull off the same similar sort of turning as the Subaru, because it was just generally more powerful, a lot more of a stiffer kind of race car, if you will. So sometimes when you go to the higher end cars, you may actually want to go a bit more towards drift, a bit less towards grip, and that will actually, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it will actually turn out to make your car go faster in terms of racing terms. So that has been Need for Speed 2015, talking about the performance and tuning your car, trying to get the best out of your car. If you did find that video very informative, then please leave that like. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like. Comment below on what you thought. And if you're new around here, then don't forget to click that subscribe button to see more Need for Speed 2015 content. My full Let's Play of this game will be starting very, very soon, so look out for that. But yeah, I've been aarava. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm just going to leave you guys with a little bit of gameplay from a race I did with this Subaru after doing all the performance upgrades we just talked about. So I hope you guys also enjoy that. Again, I'll see you guys next time.